Hi, I'm Veronica and welcome to my channel. Today I would like to show you how you could harness the breath in combination with visualization to find ease and space in your body. The idea is very simple. You're going to breathe into the part of the body where you feel stuck or restricted, and obviously you can breathe only to your lungs, so it will have that aspect of visualization. You cannot literally breathe into your foot or leg or wherever else than your lungs, but you can definitely visualize it, and that does make quite a difference. So I invite you to check it out for yourself, and I'll just give you a couple of examples. You don't need any props for this. Okay, so here is one of my favorite ways of feeling how much the breath can actually change in the way you feel inside your body, how much more of ease and stability you can find through letting go rather than bracing and creating more engagement and tension in your body. So there are people who don't necessarily enjoy this particular practice, but bear with me because it's quite amazing if you allow it to happen. So you're gonna start with your legs crossed, and it really doesn't matter how high are your legs or how uncomfortable normally you feel sitting cross-legged. And in fact, you're going to start in this position that if you came to a yoga class, you would be told that you're doing it all wrong. And that is in that kind of rounded shape where you really allow your pelvis to tilt backwards. So it's not just the back that is rounding, you're letting your pelvis to tilt back, and it's gonna feel like you're rolling behind your sit bones, those two bones that are right in the middle of your buttocks. So you start from there in that fully rounded shape where both the pelvis and the spine create a C shape, and you're even letting your head drop. And then everything else that happens is going to be super slow. And remember that whatever we're doing today is not for the purpose of stretching. We're not stretching anything. It's not a stretching exercise. It's a release. Okay, so it's a very different thing. So the first thing you're gonna do is to allow, keeping that shape, that C curved shape, you're very slowly moving more forward. And it's not about trying to reach to the floor. It doesn't matter at all how close to the wall you are, sorry, to the floor you are. What matters here is that you're finding a place where it's going to not create a sensation of a stretch for you, where it's comfortable enough for you to hang out without feeling intense stretch. And you can stay with only your fingertips on the ground, or maybe your whole fingers want to rest. It all depends on what is your current range of motion and mobility within the spine and the pelvis. So for everybody, it will be different place, but it's really not the point here. So whatever it will be for you, whether you have the fingertips on the ground, your fingers on the ground, or your palms on the ground, you're finding a place where it's gonna feel comfortable enough for you to settle and really feel for that support you're getting from the ground underneath your hands. And that's where you can start working with your breath. So you're going to use a visualization. Imagine that it was possible that you could breathe through the top of the head and that you could send that breath down the spine all the way to your pelvis, and that breath could melt away and soften everything within the pelvis. So the inhalation travels from the top of the head, down the spine, to the pelvis, and the exhalation melts and releases everything within the pelvis and everything inside your belly as well. If I keep talking, I want to really be able to do it. So maybe I will talk you through it a few more times and then I will become quiet for a while because it does take time. So visualize any way that it works for you. That stream of air moving from the top of the head down the spine. Picture all its path down the spine, all the way to the pelvis. And imagine that exhalation alone is enough to create that fluid softness all inside the pelvis and maybe also in the belly. So you have the legs and the arms that create the base, the breath traveling down the spine, all the way to the pelvis. That's the visualization you're using. And exhalation is a moment of softening. Stay with that for some time. You might even imagine that the exhalation makes your legs detach from the hips and drop away. Now, after some time with this breath, you have to listen to me very carefully. Because coming up, the way you're coming up is very important here. So, as much as possible, try to retain that fluidity and softness inside the pelvis and the belly. So you want them to be as soft as they managed to become for the last few minutes. Try not to disturb it and use only the strength of your arms to push away from the ground and very slowly start bringing you towards the vertical position. So it's really your hands that are walking towards you, closer and closer, and it's the strength of the arms that brings you back to the vertical position. And once you eventually land in that vertical position, notice for yourself, how does it feel? Does it require the same amount of effort to stay in this position as usual? Does it feel any different in terms of the base and how stable it feels? Some people report that it feels almost as, I really like this image of a candle in the candlestick. So you're being held by that base and the belly, and everything else can stay quite soft, quite relaxed. It's effortlessly upright. This is one of the examples how you could use your breath. Then I have another example for you of the expansive breath. And here you're starting in child's pose or something similar to it. Again, you might need to work it out what is going to be the most comfortable version for you. And you want to start in a place where you're not reaching out anywhere forward. You really want to feel like you gather in more. So your arms are resting comfortably. Your head might be resting on the ground. If it doesn't reach to the ground, it might be resting on some sort of prop. But you want to start in that rounded shape. So whichever position you've chosen for yourself, try to get a little bit of a rounded shape in the spine together with the pelvis and head. So once you're here, you're going to use that expansive breath to imagine that you are in a sort of cocoon, and this one is quite active. So imagine that you're in a cocoon or you're in a too tight skin, like a snake that wants to release itself from that old skin as it became bigger. So the movement is, each inhalation is making you kind of puff out and expand outward. And it's a real physical effort in this case. It's not a visualization. So you might feel it as rolling the arms and legs out. There's more of the rounding and kind of pushing with your back towards the ceiling. And all of that happens on the inhale. So each inhalation takes you a little bit farther into that rounded, expansive shape. The body follows the breath. So wherever the breath reaches, whatever it expands, the body fills up that space. And it might feel that your head starts lifting off the ground as a result of this action. So you're not lifting it, it just happens because there's so much puffiness. And then you let it all release. And you rest into your child's pose and notice how that child's pose feels. Does it feel any more comfortable for your groin, for your hips, for your back? How is it after you've expanded from inside out using the power of your breath? You might also choose some other position just to get a feeling of how it is after doing it, after doing this very short practice. So the last movement I wanted to show you, it's trying to find a space in the body that is completely unrelated to your lungs, your torso, very far away from the lungs, and yet the visualization still works and does its job. So let's say that you take some time to settle into your constructive rest with the knees bent and feet on the mat, lying on the back. And once you settle here, you can actually make this little test, or and imagine that maybe just straighten the knee and see how much you can you can stretch your leg. And you're doing it from the knee, you're doing it with the strength of the leg. You want to stretch it, to find some stretch here. So if this is already like a lot of a stretch for you, maybe you want to stay with reaching towards the ceiling. If you have somehow quite a lot of space and no tightness along the back line of the leg, maybe you want to see how it would work if you had that leg closer towards your body. But basically, it's what you would call a normal stretch. Yeah. So then you can lower that leg and try to approach it in a very different way. So the first thing would be to allow that leg to float and find for it a place where it feels weightless on one hand. So it means it's dropping deep into the hip socket, kind of floating. And it's a place where you can hold it effortlessly. So you don't really need to, you're not stretching anything here, and you don't really need to put muscular effort to keep the leg in that upright position. So whatever it will be for you. And then you can start really diving into your entire leg. So maybe even imagining it from that place where the thigh bone is deep into the hip socket, all the way to the toes and the sole of the foot, and feel that sole of the foot. And I imagine you could breathe from the top of the head down the leg, through the hip, and all the way down the leg. And that inhalation creates a little bit more space along the back of the leg. So it's a visualization. You're directing that breath all the way down the leg. And it travels to the sole of the foot. And there's no rigidity there. You're not trying to lock anything, pull anything, or stretch anything. You're just breathing some space to that leg. How is the sensation? Breathing the spaciousness to the leg. And maybe there's always a little bit of a release when you exhale. So it's almost like a pulse that goes with your breath. Expansion when you inhale, and a little bit of backing off when you exhale. A tiny bit of a pulse. How does that feel? How is that different? Does it create the same sensation? And remember, you're not really trying to gain anything from that, reach anywhere in particular. It's not about the final shape. It's about the sensation you're getting along the way. And just check it for yourself. How does that feel for you? You might even notice how that leg that you connected to, that you breathed to, is different to the other leg that you haven't connected to yet. If you lie down with your legs long on the ground, how does it rest on the ground? How much of a feeling and connection with that leg you have, and how that leg connects to the pelvis and to the upper body as opposed to that other leg. And of course, if you want to, you can do exactly the same thing on the other leg. I hope that you could really feel the difference for yourself. And if so, please feel free to share it in the comments below. And remember that you could use the same kind of breath to release the tension, but also to work with pain. For other really good method of dealing with pain as it comes, listen on. If you suffer from chronic pain and need a tool that will help you to decrease the intensity of that sensation right at the moment when you experience it, I invite you to download for free my first aid for pain. It's a 7-minute long audio recording, which you can get from my website. I link it here and also in the description of this video. I will see you next time. And if you don't want to miss any of these videos, don't forget to subscribe.